So is that kind of the middle of the state?
Pretty much. We're about halfway between Indianapolis and Cincinnati. So.
Okay. All right. So Cincinnati, that's kind of the southern part of Ohio.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So basically the middle of nowhere.
Well, nothing's in the middle of nowhere. Everything's in the middle of where we are, right?
That's true.
That's hardly nowhere. That's the most important place. So what's your weather doing there?
It is nice outside now. We've had rain the last couple days, but so far it looks like it's turned out to be a good day.
Oh, good. Yeah, we got rain here. We've had good weather for a while, but it's raining now. That's what it does in Vancouver, a lot. We're used to it. So are we waiting for one more person, Mark?
Yeah, we are, but we can just get started.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Isaac, welcome. As you say, or from Indiana, we're in Vancouver. Hope everybody's staying safe. Welcome to another one of our Link gatherings. Still hoping for Dawal to join us, but I don't see him yet. Yeah, with that, maybe Isaac, why don't you just start again, introduce yourself, let us know which languages.
Well, you know what I thought we might do, Mark, is this is, I don't know, this is the fourth or fifth, just sort of the background a bit. We just felt that with everybody locked down and staying in their homes, it's nice to connect with people. Different people are doing different things. I see, by the way, you know, we're in the lumber business. Mark was telling me that someone told him that the mills on Vancouver Island are busy shipping cedar to the United States because do-it-yourself projects, you know, are booming like never before. People have time on their hands. I know that my wife, who likes to make sourdough bread at home, can't get her hands on any flour because everybody is deciding to make bread at home. So people are getting into all kinds of activities, including language learning, which is a very good way to spend your lockdown moments. And so we thought we'd reach out to different users of Link and language learners so that they could share what they're doing. And that might be encouraging for other people. So I just thought I would, so people know what these things are all about.
And you know what, we might even have time after Isaac. I don't know where Dawal is, but if he doesn't show, we may have time to have some audience participation. Maybe we might.
Okay.
If people are interested in joining as doing a bit of a presentation, put your hand up. I think there's an ability to put your hand up here somewhere. And with that, maybe Isaac, you can go ahead.
So hello, everyone. Isaac Trollander. I've been interested in languages for some time. When I was probably, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, I decided I was going to learn a bunch of languages by using dictionaries, which did not work out. But I learned a lot about languages. And so I took that with me the last couple of years. When I was in college, I minored in French. And although most of my French is now dormant, I reached a decent proficiency in French that gave me confidence that I could learn pretty much any language I wanted to. So shortly after that, I started working on Spanish pretty seriously. I'm not fluent, but I'm very happy with my progress in Spanish. And so I've been using mostly Duolingo and Link to work on Spanish and whatever other language I'm working on at the time.
Okay. Can I make a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
I think this idea of dormant is key. People often say, so how do you maintain your languages? I don't worry about them. If I start one up again, I will struggle. But it is there and it comes back, and it very often comes back stronger than ever. And it's almost as if, and other people have agreed with this, that spending time on another language, sort of expanding your brain, developing more flexibility, maybe a better capability of learning languages in general, all of that means that when you go back to that, in your case, dormant French, very quickly you'll be back up past where you were before. So I always say, don't worry about stuff that's dormant. Dormant is good. It's not going anywhere. You can always go back to it. And the other thing you said, which caught my attention, was the word confidence. And I think confidence is so important. All people who are successful at language learning are confident that they can learn. And the people who are not so successful, who have been going to the library Spanish class for 8 years and still can't speak, they basically somewhere deep down don't think that they can do it. So, and if you've never done it, in your case, you had that confidence from your experience with French and then Spanish. If you've never done it, you just have to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Just do it, and you'll do it. And once it's done, you'll have that confidence. And that was certainly my experience after I achieved a certain level in French. I had no doubt that I could do it for another language, which turned out to be Chinese. So confidence is big.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, so you please please go ahead. By the way, I like the suit and or jacket and bow tie in these COVID times. Everybody can, like myself, looking pretty casual. So bringing our level up a bit. I like that.
The only thing is, we know that Isaac has his pajama pants on underneath. So there was a question mark about, could Isaac do something? I saw that. Where did I see that?
Well, I mean, Isaac, you were gonna continue, right?
Steve, something you said about when you switch from one language to another, that coming back to that, it helps with the first language.
Right.
I had an interesting experience with that. For a while, I was working on German, and I can't hardly speak German, but I can understand a little bit of it.
Right.
And early on, I struggled with some of the grammar concepts until I started working on Latin a little bit. And in Latin, with all the declensions, it finally clicked. Oh, this is what's going on in German, and to a lesser extent. But based on that, it allowed me to, improve in my German just by knowing how the concept works.
Yep.
And as I continue to branch out and move into Slavic languages, I'm sure that's already something I'm finding that's coming up more and more as a declension. But since I now know how it works, and it's not something that is unknown to me, I can approach that with more confidence. Because early on, before I had my success with French, when I tried to learn Spanish, I would get a book and I would read it, and I would see conjugations and have no idea how it worked. It was foreign to me, but coming out of English. But then going through college, learning the French conjugations, going into Spanish, it was something that, oh, I've seen this before. It's different words, same concept.
Yep,
and
agreed.
I believe there was a question about me sharing my screen.
Yep.
I'm using a cell phone, so I'm not going to be able to do that.
Oh, okay.
But I will say one thing I have really found helpful on Link is that the import feature. As a Christian, I'm pretty familiar with the Bible, and I found the Bible in different languages that I can pull in. So here's a passage I'm familiar with in English. All of a sudden, I can find it in almost any language I want to learn. And I know what it's saying in English, but how is it saying it in German or French or whatever other language? So I've really found that to be interesting. And I'm a pretty new premium Link user, so I'm still learning, feeling my way through and finding out what to do. But I've found that to be something that is pretty interesting for me.
That's an interesting comment. I think people underestimate the importance of familiarity. So obviously, when we're learning a foreign language, we're learning something that's strange because it's different. The more things that are familiar, the better we're going to understand, the better we're going to do. In fact, there were studies done where they took 20 or whatever, 40 people, and they divided them into two groups. One group were allowed to study all the new words in a passage ahead of time, and the other group was familiar with the context. The group that was familiar with the context understood much better than the group that studied all the words. So familiarity is very important. And that's why a lot of people, I know Mark has done Harry Potter in Japanese, or, and so it's very useful to do stuff that's familiar. That's another reason why, for example, with our mini stories at Link, we talk about very familiar situations. You get up, you have a cup of coffee, you drive to work. These are familiar. Unfortunately, many language books begin, say in Korean, by telling you that there are 4 different ways of saying sister. So this is culturally so strange you know, or they got folk tales, or they got whatever. And things that are very, very specific to this culture. They feel that you want to be hit chapter 1 with all these different things, whereas actually you should be given very familiar things. Absolutely. Because you can always get back to the fact that they have 4 ways of saying sister later on when you've learned the language. So familiar is key, and I can see that bringing in the Bible in different languages is a great thing to do. Yeah.
And that's all I have right now. So
okay,
that's great. I don't see anyone from the audience wanting to participate. Maybe I'm not. But if you're out there and you'd like to pop in, say hello, explain a bit about how you use Link, no pressure. But otherwise, we'll continue along.
Oh, here's a question.
Yeah,
I've been learning English with Link. Read Steve's book, blah, 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 but recently there's a feeling I make no progress. What could I do? Would it be better to read text out loud or silently? Okay, first of all, we have to remember the 3 stages of learning, 2 or 3. The first stage is a period where we make a lot of progress. We think we had a lot of trouble before. We've made a breakthrough. We're very pleased with ourselves. Then we enter a period that's known as either the plateau or the desert or the doldrums, where we feel we're not making progress, but we are making progress. You just have to trust that you're making progress. I can tell that I'm making progress with my Arabic because the pages are getting whiter and whiter on Link. Fewer and fewer blue words, fewer and fewer yellow words. But whenever I listen to the podcast from Al Jazeera or whatever it might be, I still don't understand it. So it's frustrating. And it seems there's forever words that I'm looking up, or there's yellow words that I still don't know what they mean, even though I've met them many times. So it takes a long time. So as to what you should do, I would continue doing what you're doing. If you want to read text out loud, do so. I have never been able to do that for very long, but it's a variety of activity. Do it to vary your activities. Perhaps you're getting bored. Sometimes if I'm bored with the content that I'm using, I'll go to our, what's it called again? Not the stream, but the feed. The feed. And I'll see what other people are studying. So get some variety, bring some variety into it. You just have to continue. So you have to vary it. Maybe talk a couple of times a week with a tutor. Vary the content you're using. If you want to read out loud, do so. I don't think it's a significant thing to do, but if you enjoy doing it, do so. So introduce a little more variety, but just remember that you are in that long period where you are gradually but slowly adding words. Your brain is slowly getting used to the language. You don't have the impression that you're improving, but in fact you are.
And I would say that's why we have a lot of the statistics that you see on Link, so that you actually see that you're making progress. So you can see obviously that you're creating links, and during the so-called doldrums, you should be creating a lot of links. And then likewise, you should start to see, as Steve said, your page is getting lighter, but your known words should be increasing, because as you continue to read and create links and go through content, you realize that you know a lot of the yellow words and start moving them to known. And so these statistics, and you can go to your profile and you can see over time your progress. You see that your links graph continues to move up and to the right. Your known words graph continues to move up and to the right. You should be doing the listening, 30, 40 minutes a day. So your listening stats should move up and to the right. Reading, words read, all of those indicators tell you that you are improving, and you just got to stay with it, and you just realize you understand better over time. It's a gradual process. Yeah.
I was just going to say, one of the easiest things to do is to create more links, because it's mechanical. Okay. The yellow words, I can't just move them to known if I don't know them. And I come across them and I still don't know them. I don't know how many times I've come across this word and I still don't remember what it means. But you can turn blue words into yellow. So you throw them into your database. You don't know it. You haven't learned it. But at least if the goal is 13 links a day, 50 links a day, it's a mechanical task. It's like take out the garbage. You got to do it. So you just do it. So at least today I achieved that. I created my 20 links, or whatever your goal is. So I think that's another way of attacking it.
And I think one of the things people don't realize is, and don't maybe do enough of, is creating links. A lot of people kind of create links slowly and kind of pick and choose words to link, and then kind of really think that they're going to try and learn them. And that's not the right approach. The right approach is to create as many links as you can, work through content. The links, if they matter, will come up again, and they'll come up in the next lesson. And the words that don't matter, you'll never see them again. It doesn't matter. That link is off somewhere. But the words that matter, that you see regularly, and it may be influenced obviously by the type of topics that you're interested in, you'll start to learn the vocabulary that you need to learn to go through the lessons that you're studying. But definitely, if you take a look at Steve's statistics or any of our power users, a lot of the people that appear on these gathering panels, the number of links that they're creating, it's just an indicator. To create that many links, you're doing a lot of listening, you're doing a lot of reading, you're just inputting a lot of content in your brain, and your brain will make sense of it.
And if you have trouble meeting your daily link total, create links with phrases. Mm-hmm. Go in there, go back into text that you're working on, and create some phrase links to meet that content, to that link creating goal. Now here Michael comes back and says, I understand, but this cannot know if I'm reading books. Of course, we can't. The link can't track what you're doing outside of link. But if you understand 80% of John Grisham's book, you're doing pretty well.
Although if you are reading John Grisham's book, if I'm reading a book in a foreign language, I import it into link. It's just.
So would I. 80% for sure.
80% for sure. It's a bit of work depending on where you got the book from, but you have to figure out how to remove the DRM. But you can do a Google search to try and figure out how to do that, and then get it into link. And it's just so much more pleasant to read the foreign language books in link with the ease of lookup, and it's just tied in and it gathers all your stats, all the rest of it. I don't read foreign language books if I can't read them on link.
And 80% actually is not very high when I think of it now, because let's say you're at 95%. So I don't know how many words there are on a page. If there are 300 words on a page or something, 95%, that means there's 15 words on that page that you don't understand. Now, it might be the same word twice, but 10 to 15 words is annoying, actually. I think in order to enjoy reading away from link, I want to have like 99%. If I'm at 95% known words in a book, I want to read that book on link. And I'll find it as an ebook and hopefully be able to import it.
Rodney asks, are books on Audible downloadable into link? So no, the answer is no. And typically, at least my typical approach with books is that I will listen to books on Audible. So I'll find books on Audible that look interesting, and then I will go and try and find the ebook somewhere, like buy the ebook and then remove the DRM and import it into link. And then I'll listen on Audible and read it on link. And I typically don't, in that situation, read and listen at the same time, although I suppose you could have Audible playing in the background and read it on your mobile device. But I'll read it on link, and then when I'm exercising or washing dishes, I'll listen on Audible. It would be nice at some point in the future if we could do some kind of integration with
timestamping or something,
Amazon, so that we could maybe sell book, text, and audio together in link already. But that is one of our dream scenarios that we will hopefully achieve someday. Hopefully that answers that question. Steve, Leroy Rose asks, do you review your links? What should I do with them when I have created them?
So at an early stage in a language, I will review them as I turn the page. Very rarely, like I'll occasionally go to the vocabulary section and go through them alphabetically somewhere randomly. There'll be 3,000 links there. And so all the words that start with the same letter, occasionally, but so rarely that it doesn't count. Mostly I am reviewing my words when I come across them in the text. and sometimes when I turn the page. But as I advance in the language, there's just too many of them. I don't really, I have to be honest, I don't review them.
And I guess, one of the things that you do and have said and do, even when you're reviewing, is you actually don't care if you get them right or not.
No.
You're just going through them as fast as you possibly can, just to kind of remind yourself of the word and the meaning, which is why when you go through a text and you click on yellow words, you're effectively doing the same thing. You click it, see what, oh yeah, that's what it is, move on.
See, I could be wrong, but I'm of the opinion that all of the scratching your brain, thinking, trying to remember, it doesn't do much for you. That language learning is all about exposure. So that's why I never do drills, questions, comprehension questions, any kind of drill question where I got to think about stuff, never. Even the questions, the circling questions and the mini stories are all about exposure. And the same with, if I do flashcarding to introduce some variety because I'm bored of reading, it's just bing, 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 bing. I just go through them quickly. I get them wrong, I get them right, it doesn't matter. It's just another form of exposure. I just want to answer another question here that before I lose it. Does your language learning acquisition principles apply to other areas of life? So I think that learning, and I'd be interested in Isaac's point of view on this, but I think that the way we learn things, it doesn't matter what it is, there's obviously some similarity there. The brain slowly starts to, get used to things. When I was at university, if I had a history course, I would like to get 3 or 4 different books on the same subject. So then I would get the same material covered in 3 or 4 different ways, rather than trying to master the one book. I would want to read a variety of books that cover the same material. And I think this sort of grazing approach to learning, where you don't try to block learn things, but you try to kind of see it from this perspective and that perspective, go off, do something else, come back, which is the right approach, and never worrying about what we master and ace. I think that works in learning a number of other things as well. That's my experience. I don't know if other people have other ideas on that.
If I may.
Oh, go ahead, Isaac.
So to me, I guess language learning is a little bit of a different animal than, say, the other kind of learning I may be doing, in that with language learning, I'm really building up familiarity with the language and building up enough familiarity with the vocab that if I'm put in a situation where I have to use it, whether it's in reading or speaking, I'm able to bring that out in a coherent fashion. If I'm learning to do something else, say play piano or something like that, it's a little different process. The principles of putting in the time, of going over stuff enough that it becomes familiar, I think are the same. But to me, the end goal being some form of fluency, whether in reading, writing, or speaking, is different than, to me, and to the other areas that I might be seeking mastery in.
Yeah, no, the net result is different. But I mean, the idea is about, you have to be positive, you have to have confidence, you have to like it, you have to put in the time, you should vary your activities, don't get frustrated at what you can't do, think more about what you have achieved. I think all of those things are similar.
And then kind of hitting things, hitting things from different angles. You have to learn things 3 different times, or whatever it is. Like the first time, it doesn't quite stick, and so yeah, definitely, I agree. The idea that your brain will learn it, you just need to kind of hit it enough times, and trying to force it to stick doesn't really work. Not for the especially in with vocabulary. A lot of people really want to, get interested in the SRS and reviewing. And the reality is, if you go after SRS and you're going to review and you're going to manage your statuses and learn them till whatever it is, the Anki or whatever it is, you cannot possibly learn enough words that way. It's just not an efficient process, even if it does work to learn those 20 words today or whatever it is. Like 20 words a day is just not enough. You want to get to 35,000, 45,000 words. So 20 words a day, that's
Plus, I think the idea that you are learning the words in context, so you're also exposing yourself to all of that context so that you're getting familiar with the language, even as you're learning the words. Now, there are certain things that are quite different from language learning, like, if you're learning judo, so you've got to practice these movements and you want to nail them down so that they become automatic. And you can train your body to do these things. So I think training the body for certain physical activities in sports, for example, working on your serve in tennis or your slap shot in hockey is different. Language learning is more of a fuzzy process, in my opinion.
So I guess to finish that guy's question, yes, it's worthwhile to move on for sure. If you're bored of a lesson, move on. You don't need, if you understand 75, 85%, move on to something else. Even if you understand less, move on. Keep moving, come back, keep moving forward, come back, but create lots of links, vary the input. All of those things will produce better results than just trying to hammer at one lesson and nail it down to perfection. Somebody also asked, just to follow up to the Audible and audio, or the ebook question. I have legal copies of Harry Potter. Can I import them into LingQ? The answer is absolutely yes. There's no issue importing into LingQ, but of course you shouldn't share those in the library because you've bought them and you can use them for your own use. But other users should buy them and import them for their own use. But there's no restrictions on importing anything you want for your own account. It's private and not shared unless you actively choose to share it. Someone is asking, what are the statistics on the effectiveness of learning English using LingQ? Of course, following all the recommendations and all the tips given by you, Steve.
There are no statistics. I think that it's widely recognized that massive input, and these are the theories of Stephen Krashen and others, and the experience of many people, massive input, massive listening and reading is the most effective way of learning a language. LingQ makes that easier to do. There's a bunch of functions, a bunch of statistics. There's a range of content available there for you. You can import material, but we have no statistics. We haven't done any studies. We haven't asked any university to have two groups, people on Duolingo and people on LingQ, and at the end of 6 months, who's learned the most. We haven't done anything like that. So we have no such statistics.
As a native English speaker, learning French is, in terms of vocabulary, isn't a huge issue. The bigger issue is understanding spoken speech, especially with the crossover of words. Because I've done so much listening in Russian, it's become easier to understand it, but Russian is phonetic, unlike French. So will it take longer to understand French speech? I can't understand it if it'll take more time to get used to it.
Well, the thing to understand about French is that it is one of the most monotonous languages. Like, you don't have a lot of intonation. It's like, so that takes a while to get used to. And there is this liaison, which you're talking about, in other words, if it says, quant à moi, it's quant à moi. It's like the last sound of the previous word slams right into the beginning of the next word. You just have to get used to that. You have to listen to it and listen and read. And maybe it helps if you take a paragraph, say, in a lesson at LingQ, and listen to the natural speech, the narrator, and then it's just a paragraph or even a sentence, and then try and imitate that, imitate the intonation, imitate the liaison. Just get yourself to try and do what the native speaker is doing. And gradually your brain will get used to it. You have to assume that your brain will get used to all of these things. There are people who have learned French. So, yes, you have identified a problem. With Russian, the problem is cases or, verbs of motion or something. In French, it's this monotonous, you just have to get used to it. That's how they speak. You just have to get used to it.
And a lot of listening, just a lot of listening.
A lot of listening.
You have to hear it enough that your brain starts to make sense of it. I guess we'll keep moving on. What do you think is the main difference between LingQ and other similar programs? What is its advantage? I don't know of many other what we would consider to be similar programs that are out there. Typically, people are comparing LingQ to, I guess your Duolingos and Babbles and, I don't know, I guess Anki, Flashcard Review. Obviously, we're a bit biased, but yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really compare effectiveness. I mean, those other programs are very limited in what they are going to teach you. They're good to get you interested in the language, and they're gamified but even if you complete those other apps, you're only covering this much of the language when you need, you can't see my arms, but this much. You need tens of thousands of words. You need the listening, I don't know how many hours of 1,000 hours of listening to real content in that language. You need to read hundreds of thousands of words effectively. At least that's what you do on LingQ, so that you can achieve that exposure that you need to be able to speak, understand, and eventually speak your target language. And so I think the big thing that sets LingQ apart is that A, we make it interesting through the content, and B, it's a platform that will let you achieve whatever level you are trying to achieve in your target language. I don't know if Steve, you have
I would add to it. It's some people like it, some people don't. For me, I find it a pleasant place to be. You have to be in an environment that you enjoy, where you enjoy the activity, you want to get back to it. And so I think that some people are comfortable in Duolingo and some people are comfortable in
LingQ. Here's a question. Do you use LingQ for English also? Sometimes there are new words you can learn in your native language. Steve?
Well, I don't. First of all, I would like to improve in all of my languages, including English. So I don't have time to go back and improve in Japanese. So I'm not going to spend any time on English. But I have often thought that because so many people in any society are not, let's say, are not as literate as they could be in their own language in terms of their vocabulary and their use of language. It's estimated that 20% of the population in advanced countries is in that lowest tier in terms of literacy. So I've often felt that LingQ would be useful as part of a literacy program to help people read better in their native language, which if it was English, then that would be the case for English, but I don't use it for that. No.
Here's some questions from YouTube. How long should you read and listen before you start talking?
I think that's entirely subjective. And in fact, that ties into, I'll tie that into a question I see on the Q&A. When can you stop learning and start functioning in the language and not try to learn things, okay? You never stop learning and start functioning. You're always doing both. So you don't stop listening and reading and start speaking. Even when you start speaking, you're still focusing on listening and reading. You get the language in you through listening and reading. When you start speaking is entirely up to you as an individual. When are you comfortable? So in my case, I spent 9 months listening and reading to Russian before I spoke. I didn't feel any pressure to speak. I was enjoying the content that I was reading and listening to, and I saw my comprehension ability go up, and then I started speaking. With Czech, it was 6 months. Now that we have the mini stories, which is kind of our starter material, I find that they get me going faster because there's so much repetition, so many high frequency verbs, conjunctions, so I used to start speaking when I had 10,000 words. With Czech, it was like 7,000 or 8,000 words, and now I start with 3,000 words. However, if you live where the language is spoken, or if you want to start earlier, I think that's very much a subjective thing. But if you don't live where the language is spoken, your opportunity to speak is basically getting online with someone, either a language exchange or a tutor that you pay. But you can't spend 3 hours a day. Well, maybe you can, but it's difficult to spend 3 hours a day online talking to people. So it's still going to be a minor part of your learning, once or twice a week. The bulk of the learning, to my mind, remains the listening and reading activity. And as to when you start, I think that's entirely up to you. As I said, I used to be 8,000, 10,000 words. Now I'm at 3,000 words. And that's by and large because of the mini stories.
How do you see the future of online language teaching? What should teachers try to do?
Well, in my own view, historically, the teacher taught the language. So I'm sitting in the class. I don't know anything about the language. I don't know what words mean. I don't know the subjunctive. I don't know the cases. I know nothing. The teacher is the source of information about the language. Today, that's no longer the case. I can, first of all, I find that I get into the language better by listening to things rather than having some explanation, rather than saying, today we're going to do verbs or irregular verbs. Tomorrow we're going to do subjunctive. In other words, where there's a definite program of teaching the grammar. I don't find that very effective. I get into the language through, say, mini stories. When I'm curious about the language, I look it up. So the role of the teacher to me is to encourage, to help the learner find content at their level, something that we hope to do better at LingQ. Content that's relevant, interesting, and yet at my level. Answer any questions. Maintain the motivation of the student. Many students start with a lot of motivation and then their motivation declines. Teacher has to make sure that they're constantly motivated. As I often say, when I was 16, I spoke one language. Then I had a teacher who really motivated me to learn French, and that started me on to learning these other languages. So an online tutor has to be aware of what resources are available online for that language, how to motivate the student, and those kinds of things, rather than seeing themselves as someone that's going to teach the language.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things we always say is that no one can teach you the language. You need to learn it, but the teacher can really help you by pointing out how you can learn it, because people don't know how, that how reading and listening is so effective, for example. Yeah, anyway, any plans for African languages? No plans for African languages, but I think we covered this, I guess, the last gathering. But yeah, if we get mini stories in African languages prepared by volunteers, then we'll look at what would be involved in adding them on LingQ. But right now, we have no plans.
Somebody asked here, what do you suggest for getting used to different accents in Chinese? Most of the intermediate content I find is deliberately spoken in a slow and clear manner. I suspect then this intermediate content is not authentic content. You're going to have to go maybe on YouTube or somewhere and find natural content where there are transcripts, bring them into LingQ, and undoubtedly you're going to come across different accents. There'll be some Taiwanese, there'll be some people from Eastern China, from Southern China, and you're just going to have to look for that. Maybe you could ask on our forum at LingQ, but I'm not studying Chinese, so I don't know where you would go to find that material.
Where is a good place to buy audiobooks for LingQ? I guess it depends on the language. Audible was mentioned earlier, which has a lot of audiobooks in a variety of languages. You then still have to find the ebook somewhere else. Unfortunately, the ability to buy an audiobook with text is not really something that anyone seems to offer. So you end up having to get the audio in one place and the ebook is somewhere else, or you have to at least buy them separately. Yeah, I mean, besides the obvious Audible, Amazon, there's ebook stores in every country.
Depends on the language. For Russian, it's Litres, L-I-T-R-E-S, which is excellent. For Czech and Polish, there was Audioteka, which had a lot. Publio.pl for Polish. I mean, you just have to, search in the target language. Search for audiobooks and ebooks. If you don't know how to say those things in the target language, go to Google Translate, get it translated, then pop it in the Google. Yeah, go ahead.
I would just say that, and we're going to be trying as we move forward to do a better job of helping people find these resources through our interface, to try and point people at them, because it's not that easy to find them, especially depending on the language that you're studying. So we're going to try to get, we have lots of members who do find these things, and try to figure out how we can put that information together in a central location, or make it available on LingQ, so that people have an easier time of finding that.
This ties into the question about Spanish material from Rodney. Yeah, he's looking for beginner material. I think if you're still looking up 60% of the words, Rodney, you're better off to stay in our library at LingQ. We have lots of Spanish content. Build up your, known words count with our own material, and then you'll be, I think, more successful in finding stuff online that you can import.
Somebody asks, I have a number of easy activities that I enjoy doing in Chinese and French. Do you think I might waste my time? Also, I like to review a lot. How much review is too much? Yeah, I don't know what do you mean by easy activities that you enjoy doing. I mean, I think if you enjoy doing them, that's a positive thing. If it's time spent with the language. But I guess if it's not improving your level much, then at least you should be also including some activities that are difficult, or at least, you should be on LingQ and trying to do content with more new words, so that you're pushing yourself a bit. There's some variety, like a little bit of variety between easy content to improve your fluency and more difficult content to push your level. I think is definitely worth doing. As far as reviewing a lot, again, if you like reviewing, it's not a bad thing. But we certainly believe that moving on to new lessons and seeing those yellow links in new contexts, multiple new contexts, is a more efficient way of learning the vocabulary, and then getting more exposure to listening and reading in your target language.
I mean, I could say that I basically have two activities: listening and reading. Okay, and when I'm reading, I'm looking up words, and I'm reviewing my yellow links. Those are the fundamental activities. And within that, as Mark says, vary it. Every so often you're bored of the easy content, you go and take on some difficult content, lots of new words. You get tired of fighting your way through the bramble bush, getting scratches all over your back. So you retreat to the easy stuff, and you listen to that a few times, and you notice a few things. Then you get bored with that, and then you go back to the difficult stuff.
Yeah, I think we covered this. How would you teach English effectively given your views about language learning?
Well, bear in mind that I haven't been a classroom teacher, but I have done online tutoring. And so I try to engage the learner, in conversation, try and get the learner to speak. It's one-on-one, so it's not a classroom. In a classroom, I guess you'd get everyone trying to speak more. And then I make note of the phrases and the words that the learner has trouble with. I type these into my conversation report at LingQ as the person is talking. So at the end, I have like 20 or more phrases. And then I record that for him or her, send it out to them, and that's a lesson that they study. That's good enough. I don't find correcting all that useful. I find myself, when I review my conversation reports over 6 months, I seem to make the same mistake. It's interesting because my tutor will write out all the phrases that I have trouble with. Because my ability to use words is much more limited than my comprehension, we tend to talk about the same subjects because I'll steer the conversation back to things that I can talk about. And then I'll make the same mistakes every week. So I'll see the same corrected stuff every week. It takes a long time to correct yourself. And I've had the same experience in teaching people. I correct them and they continue making the same mistake right in the very same class after I corrected them. So realistically, I think engaging with a teacher, it's encouraging, it's motivating. The good teachers are motivating. They get me to talk. I don't have to think up questions. The teacher gets me talking. I get a report. I review it. It's just part of that gradual process. I think that's what teachers should do. Encourage, perhaps provide some input for the learner, and help them with suggestions on where to find content. And this is what my good teachers have done in the tutors that I've used on LingQ.
Here's a question for Isaac. did you find just passages rather than the entire Bible? If so, where did you find the Bible passages in other languages?
So I found there's a website called Bible Gateway, and it has dozens, if not hundreds, of different translations. Most of them are the whole Bible. Some are just New Testament. Now, one thing I did do when I was using that was I went through and checked the copyright to make sure I wasn't using one that said, you can only use it for this use. I found one that just had a general copyright on it, and then imported those over. So there are some languages that are not on there, but I found a lot of languages that I'm interested in on there, and I can find. So, and what I would do is pull over one chapter at a time. My test was whether or not Psalm 119, which is the longest chapter of the Bible, could fit in one single lesson on LingQ. So I pulled it out in a certain language on a Word doc, checked it, and put it in, and indeed it did fit on one lesson. And so then from then on, I knew if it could handle Psalm 119, it could handle any other chapter. And I just brought over the ones that I'm interested in and went from there.
In terms of, by the way, copyright, I mean, if you're importing for your own use, it really shouldn't matter what the copyright restrictions are, I believe, just as a note. Obviously, if you're sharing them in the library, that's a different story. Then yes, for sure, you need to check the copyright restrictions. Thanks, Isaac. Let's see. I've studied German for a month now. I'm getting more confident by the day, but I've heard you should wait a little before starting to talk. I guess we've covered this. How long should I wait? I mean, did you actually give you just said whenever
you want. If you're, burning with desire to talk, start talking. If you're not quite comfortable yet, then wait. At some point you have to speak, and to become fluent, you have to speak a lot at some point. And that may involve going to the country, because once or twice a week with a tutor is not going to do it. But typically, after a while, you're curious, and it's always very interesting. Like if I've been 3 months on, Persian, and then set up my first online tutoring session, I'm a little nervous. Like, am I going to be able to say anything in this language? And inevitably, I do much better than I expect. And recently, I had the experience of not talking with the tutor in Arabic or Persian for 6 months. And then I get back on, and the tutor is surprised how much I've improved. I haven't even spoken in the interim. So listening and reading improves your ability to speak. When you first start speaking, you struggle, and then it develops. But as to when you start, I think that's entirely personal. I now start when I have 3,000 words and have gone through the 60 mini stories. I used to wait till I had 8,000 or 10,000 words, but it's up to each person.
How can I learn Chinese as fast as possible? It's, I guess, getting on my nerves. I'm not able to remember the romanizations, letters, sounds, even with Anki.
I think I always quote Manfred Spitzer. I got his book somewhere here. Anyways, he is this German neuroscientist, and he says the brain learns. The brain cannot do otherwise than learn. The brain, he calls it, is a pattern extracting machine. If you give the brain enough stimulus, it's going to start sorting things out, patterns. He points out that they did research with a 1-year-old child. 1-year-old child can 90% accurately identify which structures in a language belong to his or her native language. That's how good the brain is at identifying patterns. So that's the child. But he says the brain learns, but the brain learns slowly. So it's absolutely pointless to be frustrated that you're not learning as quickly as you would like. You will learn as quickly as you will learn. And because I don't use Anki, because I don't use that approach, I use the approach of lots of listening and reading. And with that, the brain slowly gets accustomed to the language. With regard to characters, though, I did use a spaced repetition system to learn the most frequent 1,000 characters, and thereafter I didn't. But do a lot of listening and reading, and you may have to do something specific on characters, because learning characters is different from learning words combined, because they're not phonetic. They don't represent the sounds. You're not hearing necessarily the sort of a sound version of what is written. It's a little more disconnected. So Chinese is more difficult in that sense, but you just have to save the course.
Another question about importing ebooks with audio from Amazon. I mean, first of all, I guess on the Kindle there is an ability to listen to the books, and I'm not sure exactly how that works. But if you buy an ebook on your Kindle, you just have to look up how to remove the DRM, and then there are instructions on LingQ on how to import the different ebook files like EPUB and or even text or PDF files, but you will have to remove the protection, and you'll have to Google search how to do that for the different book sellers. They don't make it easy, but if you make the effort and figure out how to do it, it's really great to have the books inside LingQ, because it just makes it just is a great way to read foreign language books. So yes, you can do it. We don't think there's any issue with importing ebooks that you buy into LingQ for your own use. Obviously, don't share them in the library, but you've bought them for your own use to then import them into LingQ and read them there because it works better, I think. Is fine. So yes, you're able to, but you may have to do some Googling to figure out how to remove the DRM. Yeah, a lot of similar questions. How to break through the intermediate barrier. I think we covered that plateau question, similar question earlier. Should I note down vocab words explicitly? Note down. I mean, that's what you do on LingQ. You create links for the vocab words that you're trying to learn. So the answer is yes, but you do it using a system. I mean, writing them down on paper is obviously a lot less effective. I import a lot of YouTube videos. Is there any way to stop LingQ from always restarting video playback whenever I switch between normal and sentence mode? I believe that that may depend on which platform you're using. I'm trying to think now. I don't, yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, we should check that. But I believe that on the web, it does do that. At any rate, yeah, if there, maybe send us an email and let us know which platform you're using, and we'll check and see what's going on there. But probably sentence mode, depending again on the platform you're using. Sentence mode allows you to actually watch the video while you read the lesson, which I think most people, if you're doing a video and want to watch as you read, that works better. Obviously, on full page mode, the video covers the text, at least on your phone. Although I guess on the web and on a tablet, it would be available in the sidebar. Anyway, yeah, reach out to support and point out which device is giving you that problem. Language classes, why do they fail? They remain popular as a starting point.
Most people, to learn a language, go to school. That's the natural thing to do. That's what people normally do. They go to class. That's what they're used to doing. They don't all fail either. I mean, a motivated learner is going to learn in class. It's just that people who aren't very motivated aren't necessarily motivated by going to class. I don't know. I would, juxtapose that question with this comment here from Jille. He says, I just started learning German by ministories at LingQ. The result was awesome, different from doing a grammar at the beginning, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's people are not so familiar with our approach. People are more familiar with the idea that you go to a class and the teacher teaches you the language. And because it's difficult to teach a language, therefore, for many people, that situation is not successful.
I would say too that I think that mindset is changing, especially with today's scenario where people aren't able to go to class. I mean, I think people are more and more looking at apps and looking at software, recognizing that you can do a lot on your own. And even those students who go to class and are successful actually achieve a lot of their success outside of class. Classroom motivates them to actually put the effort in outside of class to consume material in their target language, the types of things that we do on LingQ. So that, I mean, there are benefits to being in class. You get that social interaction. If you have a teacher that motivates you, that's all great. The ability to speak face to face, but LingQ is a great accompaniment to any language class scenario because it gives you the opportunity to really dive deeper and spend more time with the target language. That's just the exposure that you get, which you can't get unless you move to that country and spend your whole day in the target language.
Social interaction is big, no doubt. If you have your local, 3 times a week or 1 time a week language class, you meet your friends in the classroom. I mean, it's a great social get together, but it may take you half an hour to get there on transportation, half an hour to get back. So it costs. So you have to weigh the pros and cons.
Of course, if you're listening to your LingQ lessons there and back, then that's
getting the best of both worlds.
Ari, the brains being a pattern making machine, do you think during the beginning stages you should expose yourself to a bigger massive input, or does it not matter much as long as you get input?
I didn't quite understand.
I think you're asking, you mean at the beginning, should you expose yourself to more input than you would later on? I don't think so. I mean, you should continue to expose yourself to as much input as you can, that you'll just get better and better.
Yeah, I think you have to also maintain that balance. Again, quoting Manfred Spitzer, you need repetition and you need novelty. So initially the language is new. I find that I have a high tolerance for repetition as I'm into a new language, listening to the mini stories many, many times. And after a while, I just get bored with them. And so then I start to look for new content and I listen less often. So you have to, at different stages, balance that repetition and novelty. But the basic principle is you're just pounding lots of the language into your brain, and the brain is then sorting through it.
I see that Burak Eryilmaz has his hand up wanting to talk.
Okay, good.
Burak, where'd he go? Maybe not. Okay, he's no longer. Okay, maybe that was my mistake. Never mind. Any more questions there on in the QA box? Let's see. I'm new to LingQ. Is it based on mini story studying by downloading the story and phrases and clicking on dictionary? I mean, mini stories is what we recommend people start with. Obviously, the library is full of content, and you're probably looking at only the beginner stuff. You can adjust your level filters so that you can see intermediate, advanced stuff as you advance. And then as you advance, of course, you significantly increase your access to content by importing, which we definitely recommend, and which our power users definitely take advantage of. I mean, we can't possibly have all the interesting content out there to appeal to every single person. So if you can find content that you're interested in and import it, you're gonna be happier. I'm thinking about doing a 90-day challenge in May. I have an hour and a half a day. Which do you suggest?
It's 11 o'clock.
You mean, I guess between the standard 90-day challenge and the power, I can't remember what we call it, hardcore 90-day challenge. An hour and a half a day. I think you should be able to do either one of those. I don't know if that includes listening time or not. If it's an hour and a half actively on LingQ, you certainly will get through the hardcore challenge. Either way, you should. An hour and a half is a good amount of time. So either one of those challenges. Where do you go to find sources to listen to at the level where you are? Example, I listen to Lupa/Radio Ambulante, but I find that I understand so little, I have to spend a lot of time looking up 60% of the words. I'm looking for sources for books at the beginning level in Spanish. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find books at the beginning level. You kind of need to get a basic level first before you're able to tackle books. There may be some sort of low intermediate, upper beginner type books in Spanish. We might have content like that, but that sort of intermediate level content's not that easy to find. Yeah, depends how good or motivated you are to read that book. Like I know that even though you start out in a book and even with 60% unknown words, if you really are interested in the book, you can it's painful at first, but within a month, you're amazed at how much faster you are going through that book. And after 2 months, you've kind of doubled your speed again. And you can kind of plow through books if you're really motivated, or go find some easier content and work your way up. Conversational content. Books tend to be more vocabulary heavy, so it's not surprising that you're hitting more unknown words. I don't know, Steve.
Well, yeah, the comment I made earlier was, I think at that level, that person is better off to rely on stuff in our library and get the word count up so that your books and other authentic material is only, I mean, anything over 20% unknown words is tough. So I figure I always find 15% to be a sweet spot where you're gaining enough new words and yet it's not too frustrating. More than 20% is just very tough. So I would go, there's lots of Spanish content in our library, just go for that and build up your word count.
Okay, I think probably with that, I think we've been at this for an hour, so I think it's probably a good time to call it a day.
Okay.
Sorry we didn't get to every last question, but I think we covered a lot, and a lot of the themes keep coming up. Same themes keep coming up. So thanks again, everybody, for joining in. Yeah. Thank you, Isaac, for sharing with us. Everybody stay safe wherever you are, and yeah, happy linking. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.